Greetings, everyone. Daniel with All That Tech here again. First off, for the few people that will probably see this video, but first off, I want to apologize for any stuffiness or anything like that. Currently on quarantine, so this is a bit of a COVID comparison video, if you will, or quarantine comparison video, if you will. So, as the title states, I am going to be comparing two OLED TVs today. Two OLED TVs, sorry, not four. I have a LG B8 and a Sony A8H. Just recently purchased the Sony on their Black Friday sale. So, we kind of wanted to try something a little bit different. I've been happy with my LG B8, but the Sony experience and accuracy, was kind of interested in that. So I'm going to do a bit of a video comparing the two TVs and some of the issues I've noticed with both, and unfortunately a bit of a defect in the Sony, which is probably going to be a bit of a deciding factor here. So anyways, gonna turn the lights off, flip the camera around, and we'll take a quick look and kind of see some of the differences that can be noticed right off in between the two doing this video, because any comparisons you see with the OLEDs are going to be with current year models like C10 or CX and the A8H, since they're more evenly matched. But as someone who has a recent OLED, wondering if it's worth the upgrade, sometimes the spec sheet doesn't really, give you enough to work with. So hopefully, and I'm gonna probably ramble. I have a bit of a tendency to do that, it seems. But we'll take a look at the two and kind of do a bit of a commentary and show you on camera as best I can the differences between the two sets. So, lights off, flipping camera over. Alright, so on camera, neither one of these TVs are going to look very good on camera here, and they're in a bit awkward placement because I only have one TV stand. So, the Sony A8H is on the stand there, sitting up higher to the left, and my LG B8 is on the right here. And what you're seeing on camera is semi-representative, I'd say. But they're both 65-inch TVs, and I have them both connected to my receiver, so they're getting the exact same signal. I have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 4K Blu-ray hooked up. So the biggest difference that I would say, looking at the two side by side to start with, is in terms of if your panel's good, besides any defects, which I'll get to here in a minute, is the color. I would say color richness, and I'm sure accuracy, because in this is Kingpin here. It's not a live action movie or anything like that, but it translates into that too. But the skin tone is more realistic to me on the Sony versus on the LG. The LG, while they look good, and if I wasn't looking at them side by side, I'd never think anything of it. The skin tones on the Sony are more realistic and has a more cinematic look. So versus the LG, which still looks good on its own merit, but like I said, there's a little bit more, I want to say warmth, but it's like not an overall warmth to the picture. I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. You'll notice there on the B8 on the right here that the gray of his suit there is more uniform, and unfortunately on the A8H you'll notice it's kind of splotchy and kind of streaky. Unfortunately, I have some pretty bad banding and gray uniformity issues on this set. another thing I'll notice, I'll mention, and hopefully I hit the right button. I'm trying to hit play here. Okay, there it goes. And it's going to be really hard to see, and a lot of times I feel like I can't tell a major difference in between the two. Um, Let me pause it. I'm not trying to get this video taken down or something stupid, but the B8 is actually a brighter set. Um, and, and the spec sheet actually before the two screens um, would lead you to say that the Sony would be brighter, even though it's a very marginal difference in brightness. So I'm trying to find something with a bit of a like highlight. Like right now, nothing's really standing out. Like everything's fairly subdued. But and right now, if I look at the two sets side by side, I can't tell really any difference at all in between the two. Um, it almost seems like the LG has a little more detail in his light there and the flashlight on his phone. In the video, it is not going to show anything at all. But and this is probably going to be fairly short, and I'm going to show the kind of panel uniformity I was talking about. But let me switch over to the PlayStation here, and I'll mention one of the things that jumped out at me first, and that'll actually help me demonstrate the brightness difference a little better. Okay, so this isn't the exact part I wanted to show, but this is The Last of Us Part 2 on the PS5, actually. So it's in HDR and 4K. It's probably still checkerboard and all that, but either way. So one thing looking at this, I notice is, for one, the LG is definitely brighter, and but again, the same story is the color richness, and I don't have a way to test this, but I would assume accuracy is better on the Sony. So let me see if I can reload there's a couple saves here that I was going to use for reference. So I'm going to go to continue here. This will help demonstrate what I was talking about with color a little bit. I'll show this loading screen. And actually, and you can't see it on camera, so you have to forgive me, but you have to take my word for it here. But there appears to be more detail on the LG. Now, granted, the Sony has probably about 60 hours of usage on it right now. So, and the LG has probably 700 hours on it. But, okay, so this is going to, and you can probably see this right out the gate. And again, it's not exactly representative on the camera, but it tells a decent part of the story. So, the greens on all the leaves, the foliage, and all that on the Sony seems more natural and realistic to me. It's more of a kind of a subdued look, less neon looking. But on the LG, it's more of it's more of a punchy green, like it's more of a neon green. Now it looks way worse on camera. Neither one of these look as good as they do in person on the camera here. But what you're seeing is pretty close. It's not as vibrant as the camera's making it out. It looks, but now, does it look bad? It's just less accurate, I would say. It's not bad. It's still an OLED, and it still looks really great. But looking at the two in comparison, it's almost like I'm looking at a Samsung, where everything's just like juiced up a little bit more, and it doesn't look. Again, it looks super neon on the camera. It's not like that exactly, but it's just there's more realism to the way that's being portrayed on the Sony here. So, but another thing is, and you can probably, yeah, you can tell in the camera. It looks really blown out on camera, but it's not in actual viewing. The LG is brighter. Like the sky and all that there is a lot brighter on the LG than it is on the Sony. And just to show the settings, I'm in custom on the Sony. So custom auto pictures off, light sensors off, brightness max, contrast 90, 0 and gamma. These are all, like, for the most part, the default settings. I just turned off all the, high peak brightness, expert 1. Just didn't put on any of the extra processing, I guess. So, like, the reality creation, that's off, no noise reduction, no smooth gradation, motion smoothing, all that's turned off, all that stuff. So, and I'm running it in custom instead of game mode to get the most accurate image. And then on the LG, just have the equivalent of the most accurate, have it in cinema, and 100, all that jazz. Is just so dynamic tone mapping is on. That's on by default on the Sony. You can't disable that. So yeah. So I would like, as far as color and the way it's represented on the Sony, I do prefer the look. Like skin tones, again, same thing. It looks oversaturated and all that on the camera here, but it's just more realistic. So it's like I don't know, it's just the flesh tone. It seems more like a flesh tone on the Sony to me versus the LG, which is not something I would have thought of if I didn't have these side by side. So, but that's why I was interested in getting the Sony, just because that the cinematic and accurate qualities of the image. But like I said, don't let the camera tell the whole story, because if you look at either one of these based off the camera, they frankly both look like crap. But there's just a difference in the presentation. It's like the LG is more just green, and the Sony is, what you'd expect to look like in real life. It's not just a solid, it's not like a green crayon. It's green with some other colors and browns and things like that. This is the different tones to it. So, okay. Let me back up here to another save, which will give us a different representation. Alright, so this is going to tell some of the same story, but it's also unfortunately going to reveal the issues that or defect really, I'm having with the Sony. So, the color representation on, like, the backpack, for example, her skin, really everything just has, it's a richer tone to the color, and I would say a more accurate tone. Again, I don't have a way to test this, but it's just, there's you can get kind of the idea with the camera, but if you've ever had a Sony, then you kind of know what I'm talking about. They just have that cinematic feel, which is great, and I really love it. But if you see me pan here, and it's going to be kind of, I don't know that it'll really come through on the camera is the problem. Maybe I can raise the exposure. No, maybe not. You can see on the right side in particular, there's a good bit of banding. It kind of goes all the way along the screen. And unfortunately, that is pretty noticeable in a good amount of content. And also in the top left, there is a pretty noticeable dark splotch. It's not as bad as it looks like on camera, but it's definitely there. So, but on the other hand, this panel, my LG panel, thankfully has none of that. It is completely and totally band free, and the gray uniformity is perfect on this set. So I'm very, that's one thing I've been very happy about with this set, and to a point where I kind of forgot that it was an issue anymore until I got this one, and I have the banding issue. So, but there are other scenes and things that definitely make this stick out a bit more, and I can try to show that. But I'm gonna go into the HDR optimizer. I think that's what they call it. No, not HDR optimizer. The HDR adjustment setting in the PlayStation to just reel it back in, what I was mentioning about the brightness. So I'm going to get to that here real quick. Alright, so what I'm going to do is go into the adjust HDR here. It's going to have to close both applications, which is fine. So this one lets you adjust basically your peak brightness. It's going to be real bright here. I don't even know if it's going to show up on camera. It's not right now. Oh yeah, it probably will. Okay, here we go. So this adjusts the peak brightness. And this, right now, looking at the two screens, I can tell you for certain that the LG is brighter. But I have them on the same setting, obviously, as the same PlayStation. The little sun icon on there, it starts to clip, or if you is the term, but it disappears sooner, much sooner than it does on the LG. So, and that's with and without the dynamic tone mapping turned on the LG. I've tried it both ways. So right now, if I hit 1, 2, 3 clicks, and I cannot see it on the Sony anymore, but it's still perfectly visible on the LG. Another thing I will mention is there is a color, like a white tone difference. It seems a bit warmer on the Sony, which I think is part of just that overall color accuracy and representation you're getting with the Sony versus the LG. So just something to mention. Either way. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So after 7 clicks, I want to say, I feel like I still barely see it, but I'm just going to call it 7. So I can go 7 additional steps on the LG before it gets to the clipping point and that icon disappears. So we're just going to do the same thing here. So try to focus in on the Sony. This one's, so 1, 2, okay, it's 3, okay, it's gone now, but like the same thing, you can see it perfectly well on the LG. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like 4. I can't see it anymore. The LG, and maybe 5. Either way. And this is the opposite side of the coin. So the one thing that's great about the Sony as well is when it comes to black detail, like detail above black, you don't have to worry about the Sony crushing. I don't know if it's at LG, but the Sony is what I meant to say. You don't have to worry about the Sony crushing your blacks like a lot of people say OLEDs do, which they can. I've seen it on different sets, like this LG here. Whenever I first got it, it had really bad issues with crushing blacks. I'm trying to, this table's a mess. But as I put some more hours on it, it got better, and it doesn't have as much of an issue anymore. But let's see, I'm gonna go down. We want this really needs to be to the very bottom, like all as low as it can go for it to be absolute 0. But we want to see when this icon disappears. So actually right now I can't see it on the LG anymore, but I can still see it on the Sony. So it's not as bright as it's showing on camera, but still. Okay, now I can't see it on the Sony either. So that I can get an additional step down for 50. Okay, I was trying to double check the brightness on the Sony. So basically, there is like another click down that I can see the Sony, which is a good thing. You want to be able to see, the like black needs to be black, but if you have even just 1% gray, you want to be able to see that difference, so you're not having those crushed details. You're not able to see shadows and things like that. So, but let me see if I can. I'm gonna turn off HDR, but try to show the difference in the gray uniformity real quick, and then I think we'll wrap it up. Alright, so this is a OLED banding test by Modern Wise. We just gotta fast forward to where it actually goes to the slides here. And another thing is that this video does show that I got some black crush on my LG, because some of the little bands he's trying to show in that don't really show up on the LG the way, unless I raise the brightness, but that's neither here nor there. So, okay. I'm just going to pause it. Oh, godly. Well, you can... I'm just going to hit play again. Okay. I mean, that's pretty representative. So, you can see that there's quite a bit of streaking in that dark spot on the side. And on the LG, it's all good. It's pretty much perfect. So, and it's like actually even seems like it's just like raising the gray level where those streaks are. So, but yeah, so honestly, this is unfortunately going to be the reason I'm returning this TV. If beyond everything else, there's some, I have my issues with the brightness and things like that. It actually does get brighter in SDR. Like HDR is not quite as bright as the LG, but it's bright enough. It does a good job. It still looks great, but the brightness on like SDR is brighter than it is on the LG, and like the black detail is better with the standard settings. So right now I'm conflicted on whether or not I want to try to exchange it and try the panel lottery again, or just return it and stick with the LG for a bit longer, because it's still a really great set. It's just the Sony is a little more accurate whenever it comes to the out of the box colors and so forth, and the way it is set up there. But giving up the perfect gray uniformity on the B8 is really, really hard to do. So, in all, I would say, assuming you can get a panel that does not have the gray uniformity issues that mine does, for something that is, you really want the truest representation whenever it comes to watching your movies and things like that, this is definitely the set to get. I really like the look that it has, but one downside is, as of right now, it is more expensive than the CX. Being more expensive than the LG CX, I don't know that I would recommend it under those circumstances. As far as when I got it, the 65-inch had dropped down to $17.99 and plus tax. So it was actually $50 cheaper than the LG CX, but the LG CX wasn't even available to buy. They were out of stock. So I figured I'd give it a shot and see how it would, fare compared to my B8. And thought about maybe selling it to a friend or someone else. But right now I'm just kind of conflicted on it. So I will say, if you can get it on a sale and you don't have issues with any kind of defects or panel uniformity, then yes, it's definitely a go. But if you want, and I know that the LG CX does get brighter than the Sony, and I would imagine gets brighter than this LG that I have here, being the B8 model. And you want those extra gaming features and everything else that goes along with it, VRR and all that, I honestly wouldn't, based off of some experience I know that people have had, just in general, but I know people personally who have got the LG CX and have issues with raised blacks and stuff like that when they use variable refresh rate with their consoles and things like that. I wouldn't, get it and be disappointed about that, but it's still a great panel. Still, you can do 120 hertz 4K. The VRR is just probably not going to be there for until the next generation, at least, if not a little bit longer down the line. But I would recommend an OLED every day of the week if you can get one at a good price. So the biggest thing is just to check the sales and things like that. And but it's a great set. Just be mindful of your panel, and make sure it's clean, and I recommend it. But I wouldn't necessarily say that if you have a previous generation OLED and you're happy with it, that it's necessarily worth upgrading, because in my case, I would be losing some brightness, and like the panel uniformity, the panel lottery, unfortunately, is still a thing. And really, in the case of getting the Sony, I wouldn't be getting any additional gaming features, any HDMI 2.1, and everything else that goes along with it. And I'd actually, like I said, be losing brightness in some regards, but gaining in terms of color accuracy. So it's a give and take. So personally, I'm probably still thinking about it, but I'm probably gonna just return this set and put the LG back up and work with it for a couple more years, because I'm still really happy with it, and it's still a great TV. It's just hard to justify getting a whole new set when the one I have is perfectly good, and there's no major gains to be had by going to a new set, because I have the size I want and everything else. So but if you have I would say if you have a LG like 6 series, for example, like a C6, B6 or whatever, or lower, this would be a really nice upgrade from that. But you could also go with the CX. I haven't had one of those in how, like, in my home to test, but I'm sure they're fantastic. Wouldn't question that at all. So but like I said, just do your research, check it out. I would recommend going through a big box retailer of some sort, be it, I always go through Best Buy, but Best Buy, Target, you could go through an online retailer like Amazon. ABT Electronics is really great. But I always do go through Best Buy. It just makes it easier for returns if you have any issues or anything like that. So, yeah, I just figured I'd give a little bit of a experience summary and comparison video, and let people kind of know what to expect if you kind of plan on making that kind of jump. So, yeah. Any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And I'm definitely rambling, but I'll see y'all next time.